We're going to go over this morning, okay? So if you're a guest with us this morning, I somewhat apologize, somewhat don't. I wasn't here last Sunday, so I got the right to go over a little bit. I've got some extra stuff to share with you. But I asked for a telescope. If you're on Wednesday night crowd, you already know this story. I asked for a telescope for Christmas. I wanted to look up into the heavens. I wanted to see some of the stars. I wanted to see a good shot of the moon. I wanted to see the rings around Saturn. I wanted to see the moons that are revolving around Saturn and Jupiter. I wanted to look as far as Amy's wallet would let me look. They don't come cheap. So, last night, I often do this though, kind of looking at what kind of song we're going to sing before we get to the message. I'll go through dozens of songs throughout the week or on a Saturday night, and I have some of the best times of worship. I've already worshiped on Saturday night or a Sunday morning before you ever get here. I encourage you to do that as well. But last night I was flipping through some new songs that I want to get to Chad so that we can begin to start singing. I'm already thinking about Easter. I've already got some Easter songs for us to learn to sing on that day. But I was in the kitchen, and I knew I was wanting to sing along with these, so I put my earphones in. I go back to the bedroom. I'm singing along. Amy's having to turn up the TV a little bit more each time. She's in the living room, and I come, and I knew I just knew I wasn't done worshiping, and I was going to have to go outside because this was about to get right. This was about to get a little shaky. My singing is not very good, so they probably didn't appreciate it anyway. So as I'm walking, I still got my little earbuds in. I'm walking through the living room. I'm going outside, and she says, "What are you?" Brenda was they said, "What are you doing back there? You're singing. We can't even hear the TV over your singing." I didn't ask him if it was any good or not. But so I said, "That's why I'm going outside." I'm going out. It was 9 o'clock at night. I go outside, and man, you live out here in Olive. I live out in the country too. You can just look. You don't have the light bleed from the city that comes in and knocks the stars out of your view. So I go out, and it's 30 degrees outside, 28 or something like that. And buddy, me and God are just having a good time. When I'm singing to God, I'm out there just crying to Him, praising Him, looking up at His creation, looking at the stars. 9 o'clock or after, I have one neighbor just down from me. The old boy was outside working with his garage door up. And I thought, oh boy, he thinks I'm a lunatic or something. But he had a big generator, or I don't know what he had. It sounded like it had some kind of motor or pressure washer going. I don't know what he was doing, working on something in his garage. And I saw him walking out in his driveway, and I thought, what is this dude doing out at 9 o'clock at night? Here it is, 28 degrees outside. He's a nutcase. He was thinking I was a nutcase. But anyway, you look up in the stars tonight and you give God thanks for His mighty creation. And we're going to be looking at some of God's marvels. My telescope, maybe, if I learn how to put a camera onto it or an iPhone onto it, we'll look at the Hubble telescope, we'll bring in some of these great pictures, and we'll just see what all God has done. But let me tell you this before I got one more video to show to you. But in 1968, on Christmas Eve, it was the first time humans left the orbit of Earth to orbit around another planet or our moon. It was Christmas Eve, and as they came around the dark side of the moon and reestablished communication, contact with NASA, that they saw the Earth rise over the moon's horizon. Now that's different. You will never see that. Man, up until that point, had only witnessed the moon rise, or a sunrise really, for the most part, rise up over the horizon of the earth. But on that Christmas Eve, 1968, these three men, as they revolved, as they moved, as their ship came around the moon, they got to experience an earth rise over the moon. And what did they do? What they saw, we can't imagine, we can't explain. Pictures will not do justice to that first earthrise that they witnessed. But what they did is they read from Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 10, and these are their words.
We are now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament, the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
Well, amen. That was those astronauts' view. That was those astronauts' words. Now, I do not know for the life of me, I do know what has happened to NASA in the last 50 years. And they would never get by with reading this out loud again for the whole country and the whole world to witness and experience. But when you come to the study of creation, that is generally where you start. Generally, you start in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, if you want to look at creation. But is there any account of record of what went on, what took place here before God created the heaven and the earth? Is there any record of what took place before Genesis chapter 1, verse 1? What happened? We do know of two things for sure, for certain, that were created before God created the heaven and the earth. Take your Bible and turn to Proverbs chapter 8. When you come to Proverbs, you come to a debated topic. Some theologians, historians, scholars, and even religions believe and teach that God created Jesus. That, my friends, is heresy. Jesus is not part of God's creation. He is the Son of God. He has always been. He's always been here. He will always be. He is not God's creation. Peter claims it when asked who he was, and Jesus asked Peter who he was. You don't have to turn here, but Matthew chapter 16, verse 15 through 17. Peter asked Jesus has asked him, and Peter responds. Jesus says, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Jesus says, this didn't come from your own knowledge. This was revealed to you by God in heaven. Now, Proverbs. We come to Proverbs, and what do we have speaking here in Proverbs chapter 8? It's wisdom who is speaking. Let's look. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22. "The Lord possessed me, wisdom, at the beginning of his way, before his works of old." Now, what were his works of old? His works of old are creation. So what does wisdom say? Wisdom says the Lord had me, the Lord possessed me, the Lord created me before he worked on his works of old. Verse 23 through 27. "From everlasting I was established, from the beginning, from the earliest times of the earth." Now remember, this is wisdom speaking. "When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water, before the mountains were settled, before the hills I was brought forth. While he had not yet made the earth and the fields, nor the first dust of the world, when he established the heavens, I was there. When he inscribed a circle on the face of the deep." What is the circle on the face of the deep? He's talking about, wisdom is talking about the circular nature of this globe, the circular nature of the earth. Isn't that fascinating that wisdom God created, God demonstrated, God showed? This wisdom says that the earth was round. When did humanity discover that the earth was round? What was it? 1492 when Columbus sailed I see some of you mouthing it right. 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's when humanity discovered that the earth was round, that it was global, that it was a sphere. But what does wisdom say? Where does this stuff come from? What does wisdom say? Wisdom says back when Proverbs was written that it was round then. The Word of God knew this all along. Now look at verse 28 through 31. "When he made firm the skies above, when the springs of the deep became fixed, when he set for the sea its boundary so that the water would not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundation of the earth." Do you know why the water doesn't just continue going? Yeah, gravitational pull of the moon. Okay. But God put the moon there. God put the moon at just the right distance from the earth. God tells the water, you can only go this far. You cannot wipe out Destin, Panama City, Jacksonville, San Diego, San Francisco, New York City. God has told the ocean, you can only go thus far. When he marked the foundation of the earth, verse 30, "Then I was beside him," wisdom, "as a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the world, his earth, and having my delight in the sons of man." Before God created the earth, he created wisdom. When you look up at space, what do you see? You see stars, you see planets, you see moons, you see galaxies, you see a great vastness. When you look at space, it displays the wisdom of God. The colors, the grandeur, the nebula, the solar systems, the stars, it's all His wisdom. We have to live in an ever-expanding universe to even begin for it to show and display the wisdom of God. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I can read I can read, and they say that the universe is made up of three things. Now, some of you may teach science. I don't know. It's made up of time, space, and matter. Look at Genesis 1:1 again. In the beginning of what? The beginning of time. Time starts now. One of the three. In the beginning, time, God created the heavens, space, and what? The earth, matter. In the first verse of Genesis chapter 1, you have the three things that make up this universe. Where in the world did Moses get this? To the best of my knowledge, Moses had never read the theories of Newton. To the best of my knowledge, Moses had never read the lectures of Stephen Hawking. To the best of my knowledge, Moses had never read any of the textbooks that are passed out in our schools today. You cannot explain the knowledge that Moses writes Genesis chapter 1 with in any other way than divine revelation. Verse 2, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was an evening, and there was morning, one day. The first 5 verses of Genesis talk about the formation of the universe, and it talks about the forces at work in the universe. What force was at work in the universe? Gravity was. What holds you to this planet? Gravity does. What holds the moon to the exact distance that it needs to be from the earth? Gravity does. What holds the earth in the solar system? Gravity. What causes the earth to revolve around the sun and not spin off into the vastness of the galaxies? The gravitational pull of the sun does. Moses lays it out, describes it right here in the first 5 verses. Gravity makes the world spin, causes the rotation, gives us our nights and days. God set it all up before man ever penned it, theorized it, speculated on it, before Newton or anybody else ever wrote it down. God planned it, and it amazes me. The average mind could not write this nor dream it up. But Moses, through divine inspiration of the Holy Spirit, wrote it down thousands of years before man ever discovered it. Man didn't understand the shape of the earth. Man did not understand gravity. Man did not know what the force was what kept him here on this planet. But woven into creation is God's wisdom. And to understand creation, man must bow his mind to a creator. We have a problem with that. I bow to nobody but me. I'm one. I must look out for myself. There is no other. I'm supreme in my own universe. That's what we have now. Man has bought into the deception that Satan has sowed through evolution, through Darwinism, and the government has sold it to the schools and to the universities, and they are so intertwined and so dependent upon the financial money that comes to them that they must force an illogical theory down the students' throats and brainwash them into this thought. The whole time, you remember Wizard of Oz? Remember Wizard of Oz? Not this new one they got out. I haven't watched this new one, but the old one, the Yellow Brick Road thing. Who are they going to see? The emperor or whoever he is? Who's that? Who's that guy? Is the emperor? Huh? Wonderful Wizard? Okay, yes. The Wonderful Wizard. But you get there, and all the people, they get there, and it's a deception, isn't it? There's really not. What's this guy? He's like smoke and mirrors is what he is, isn't he? He's behind a curtain, isn't he? He's deceiving. He's deceiving. That's what Satan is doing through evolution, through Darwinism, through other theories, through other just Big Bang stuff. That's what Satan is doing. Satan is saying, do not look behind the curtain. You look at the deception that I'm telling you right now. Do not look at the Creator, but look at the deception I am putting on you. So we do. That's where we are. The Word says, do not lean on your own understanding, but in all ways, things, acknowledge Him. Back to Proverbs chapter 8. So we see God's wisdom on display at creation. It was present at creation. Chapter 8, verse 30. Then I was beside him as a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. When everything was a mess, wisdom was there. Wisdom was overseeing it. Wisdom was watching. You know what that tells me? That tells me when you show up here and you're a mess, when you live your life day to day, you're messy, stinky, messed up, twisted life, when the dots don't connect in your life, when your marriage is messed up, your home is messed up, your school life is messed up, the kids are messed up, your financial life is messed up, your spiritual life is messed up, when you're up and down, when you're in, when you're out, when you don't know what to do, it's the wisdom of God that looked at a messed up, formless world and gave it form, gave it direction. His Spirit that spoke into this messed up, formless world is the same Spirit that can calm your life and speak into it as well. If His Spirit can bring order to chaos in the universe, then His Spirit can definitely bring order to the chaos in your life. So God created wisdom. The next thing He created is the angelic realm. Look at Genesis, back in Genesis chapter 1. This happens somewhere between verse 1 and verse 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Somewhere between there and the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. Somewhere between those two verses, this angelic realm was created. You don't find it anywhere. You don't find it laid out in nice text, nice black and white. But I believe, and we do know that He created the angelic realm to give Him praise, to give Him glory for the creation, of the universe, of the galaxy. Job wrote about it in Job chapter 38. Angel means messenger. These angels, these messengers, they long to look down into humanity. Why do they long to look down into your life? Because they look down at your life and they look at and with wonder and amazement at the redemption, salvation that is offered to you. Why? Because angels cannot be redeemed. Angels cannot be saved. Jesus did not die for the angelic host. Jesus died for you. Jesus died for humanity. The angels that have fallen will remain fallen. And the angels that have remained with God in heaven will always remain. You say, well, how do you know that's true? They've fallen before. How do you know that some more are not going to fall? Let me tell you this. If anybody wants to take me up on this, you just let me know after the service. But I'll meet you at the Waffle House over there in front of Walmart in Benton tomorrow morning. I'll lead you behind the counter right there. We'll stand behind that counter on that red hot griddle that they have, and I'll take your hand and I'll slam your hand on that red hot griddle, and I'll hold your hand on that griddle just as long as I can absolutely hold it there. And let me tell you, the next time I invite you back to the Waffle House, you will never, ever go again. Those angels that saw the ones fall from heaven, they will never, ever fall again. They saw what happened, and it is seared into their memory. There will be no more fallen angels. Many commentators say angels, and we have text here to prove it as well, but angels are like people. They have emotion. They have will. They have intellect. Man has always been fascinated with angels. Unfortunately, man has even tried to worship angels, even in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, even in today. We even have groups and cults that want to worship angels today. But Revelation chapter 22, here's what John said, verse 8 and 9. I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things. And when I heard and saw, I fell down and worshipped at the feet of the angel who showed me these things. But what does this angel say? Verse 9, he says to me, do not do that. I'm a fellow servant of yours. I'm like you. I'm a servant of God, your brethren and the prophets and all those who heed the words of this book. What does he say? He says, worship God. Don't worship another deity. Worship Jesus Christ. Worship God the Father. Worship the Spirit, the Trinity. I believe this place could possibly be full of angels right now. Think about that. I believe there is a case to be made that each one of you has a guardian angel. Matthew chapter 18, verse 10. You say, well, prove it to me. Show me. I will. Thank you for asking. See that you do not despise one of these little ones. For I say to you that their angels in heaven continually see the face of my Father who is in heaven. So there is an argument to be made that each person has a guardian angel. I certainly believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a spiritual battle taking place right now. I've said it before, that if you could see it, you would completely fall over and pass out in astonishment of the battle that is raging right now. Angels, these angels, they're special creatures created by God to worship Him. They sang and shouted every time He spoke and created something. But when you get to Genesis chapter 3, something happened in the angelic realm that made sin possible. You can read about it in Isaiah chapter 14, Ezekiel 28, but you see the origination of evil. Matter of fact, just turn to Ezekiel chapter 28. You'll want to read this for yourself, but read the whole chapter. We're going to look at verse 11 through 16. There was an angel that was created who was unique. He was unique. He was different from all the other created beings. He was considered the chief guardian angel. He was to guard the holiness of God. Look at Ezekiel 28, 11 through 16. Again, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation over the king of Tyre and say to him, thus says the Lord God, you had the seal of perfection. This is really talking about Lucifer right here. It could be talking about Lucifer and other things, but it does apply to Lucifer. You had the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. Now, ladies, there's some stones on here I cannot pronounce. Maybe you know them. Maybe you have them in your little jewelry box. I'll give it my best shot. Every precious stone was your covering. The ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the lapis, the lazuli, the turquoise, and the emerald, and the gold, the workmanship of your setting and socket was in you. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. You were the anointed cherub who covers, and I placed you there. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked in the midst of the stones of fire. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created until the unrighteousness was found in you. By the abundance of your trade, you were internally filled with violence, and you sinned. Therefore, I have cast you as profane from the mountain of God, and I have destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. This sin, this cherubim angel that covered. What does the word covered there mean? It means he fenced in, he screened, he shielded. His purpose was to cover God from the other angelic beings. Cherubims, we often see cherubim. A cherub sits on the Ark of the Covenant. What do cherubims do? They spread their wings out. So if this was a cherub of the order of cherub angels, he would have spread his wings out, spread his covering out over God so the other angelic host could not see him. Erwin Lutzer says this, that this angel arranged and directed the praise to God, for God, and moved it up to the throne of God. And I believe that. I believe that was Satan's job. Satan was this one, Lucifer was this one angel who was to cover God and all the praise. He was like a gatekeeper. All the praise, all the singing and shouting was to come up, be funneled up through him, and he would deliver it to God. He did this till pride caused him to fall, and God cast him down. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 through 15. How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the earth, you who have weakened the nations. But you said in your heart, there's some I ams that God says, 5 maybe, but here's 5 I wills that Satan says. But you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. He said, I wanted equality with God. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. He says, I'm going to rule over the angels from heaven, and I will sit on the mount of assembly in the recesses of the north. He says, I want to govern over the universe. 14, I will ascend above the heights of the cloud. He desired the glory that belonged to God. You often think of a cloud going up to God, a cloud of praise, a cloud of smoke. I will make myself like the Most High. Satan shows his counterfeit right here. It's clear. He says, I want to be like God. I want God's power. I want God's authority. Nevertheless, you will be thrust down to Sheol, to the recesses of the pit. The sin of Satan, the sin of this angel, this cherub, Lucifer, must have been included in God's original plan. Absolutely it was. However, God is not responsible for sin. This angel, these angels, have a free will, had a free will. Satan had a free will. When a creature deliberately sinned and chose to corrupt God's holiness, sin entered the picture. It was in God's plan, His permissive plan. He knew it. He knew that His Son would have to come even before He created wisdom or the angelic hosts. Now let me ask you, we're almost done. If a person were to sit in the position of this angel, if a person were to sit amongst the fiery mountain of God, if a person were to sit amongst the praise of God, the Creator, if Lucifer was to stand there and still have pride, jealousy, deceit, rebellion in his heart, can it happen to you where you sit today? Yes. If these things could happen in the presence of God, then yes, it can very much happen to you today when you sit out here on the pew or in your car or in your lazy boy at home. So the question is, why doesn't God deal with Satan? Why doesn't God deal with Satan now? He has. He already has. It's over. It's finished. Satan is on his way out. And as you have testified before, because I've asked you, you say that things are at a more frenetic pace now than when you were younger, than when generations ago, when decades ago. You see that this world is at such a frenetic pace right now because Satan is grabbing everything he can. He is even deceiving the nations at this very moment. When Christ was on the cross, Satan thought he had won, that God's plan was finished, that it was foiled, that he was victorious. But when Christ came out of the tomb, Satan realized that God had taken his own sword and cut the head of the serpent off. It's because of Satan and evil in the world that we have grace, mercy, and forgiveness. I don't think you're grabbing this. If you were to have had the opportunity to have walked with Adam and Eve in the garden before sin, you just said, Adam, and you know what you know today. You'd say, Adam, tell me about the mercy of God. Adam would say, mercy of God, mercy of God, mercy of God. Oh, I don't know that word. I've never heard that. You say, okay, Adam. Tell me about, you probably know this, tell me about the grace of God. Adam thinks, I've never said grace before. I don't know about this grace that you're talking of. Okay, Adam, well, surely you know about the forgiveness of God. And Adam says, oh, yes, let me think. Forgiveness. No, I don't know of forgiveness either. Because of sin, because of Satan, you have at least 3 words in your vocabulary that prior to the fall, Adam did not, or Eve, or the family, did not know of. Grace, mercy, and forgiveness. In our rebellion, God says, I will take your rebellion against me, and I will trumpet with my grace, mercy, and forgiveness, and I will offer it to all who seek me. God takes what Satan throws at us and he flips it around, and he says, in return, I will offer up grace, forgiveness, and mercy to all who come to me, the Creator. That's good stuff. It's good stuff. Do you know Him as Creator? Are you thankful for those 3 words in your vocabulary this morning? I need it. Let me pray for you.